Jim, our next question sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Space Cadet. Why are some wrestling venues called gardens, and what are the origins of the term squared circle?
Well, squared circle is easy because in the early days of actually pro boxing, as well as the early formative years of pro wrestling, and Brian, you've probably seen pictures, even back in I guess this was right up until John L. Sullivan was the first recognized boxing champion in the lineage and succession that we use today. But in the day, he and Jake Kilrain predated the use of gloves. They did the bare knuckle boxing, and also predating the use of an actual ring as we know it, the 4 ring posts and the ropes and etc., was a circle drawn on the ground. And it was marked off with sticks or whatever the fuck. I mean, this goes back to impromptu boxing matches in lumber camps or whatever, but there was a circle that was drawn out that this is the area of combat. And in some cases, in early rules, if you got knocked out of that circle, you lost the fight. Or that may have been the end of a round. Even in early professional boxing back in the 1880s with Sullivan and Corbett, etc., there was not a set number of rounds. A round ended when a competitor was knocked down. So one of the famous Sullivan-Kilrain fights went 75 rounds. And there was no set time limit, but and that's why that a wrestling ring is called a ring and or a squared circle, because when they began to put together a uniform surface or area for these fights or matches to be held in, you can't fucking build a goddamn circle with with the veil. How are you going to make ropes go in a circle to keep the guys in the rules were changed and modified because in a lot of cases pro boxing and pro wrestling was illegal to have in the late 1800s in a variety of states or municipalities or places. They had to have rules, just kind of like what the UFC went through when it was billed as human cockfighting. They had to establish rules to get sanctioning by the athletic commissions to be able to do this legally. Same thing 100 and something years beforehand. They had to start using gloves instead of having bare knuckle matches. They had to have set rounds instead of just being the Wild West and going until somebody couldn't continue. They also had to have a uniform fighting area with ropes to hold the people in the ring so that they wouldn't fall out into the spectators. And, you can't easily build a circle in that context. So the ring became the squared circle.
Gardens.
God, that goes back to, doesn't it go back to ancient Greece or the Roman gardens or whatever? But Madison Square Garden, the original one, there's been the one that's there now is the 4th or the 5th?
I want to say it was the 5th, but now I got to go back and check.
But anyway, Madison Square Garden was the area that the original sporting venue and or a place where people could congregate was built and located, and then they took that. But I mean, there have been the gardens associated with spectator events, athletic events, things like that down through history, right? But in the United States, I think most everybody copied or took off on, as Gomer would say, Madison Square Garden. Because a lot of arenas, even they weren't named gardens, would be called the Madison Square Garden of the South or the Madison Square Garden of the West or whatever. And Louisville Gardens, in the paper, when they changed it, it was originally the Armory, because that's what it was, an armory for the Kentucky National Guard. That's why the walls are 3 feet thick. They stored munitions there. It was the largest building in the state of Kentucky and when it was built in 1906. And it was called the Armory until they changed and modified it in the early 60s to try to attract more business events as well as sporting events, because Freedom Hall was taking the big shows. So they made it the Convention Center, try to attract business. Then they built a brand new convention center. So they changed the name of the building, and they said in honor of other great sporting arenas like the Madison Square Garden in New York and Cincinnati Gardens in Cincinnati, it's going to be called the Louisville Gardens. There you had it.
Well, perhaps you wanted to go to the Armory and you didn't like all this gardening crap and you want to sue.
You're not even trying anymore, are you? You're just wanting to get this over with. Yeah, I'll tell you what, just like the viewers, just like the listeners, you're just wanting to get it over with. Well, in that case, I'll help you out, Brian. Play the goddamn music.
Call Stephen P. If you need to sue. An outlaw mud show or two. Those are the rest.
Yes, folks, besides his excellent legal work, he also has the wrestling connection that he's one of us, folks. He's a wrestling fan of Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. He's also one of the title sponsors of Bobby Fulton's big event coming up in Circleville, Ohio in March. Reunion in Round Town. Newlawoffice.com is right there on the posters. And Bobby Fulton has lined up everybody that's ever been in wrestling to appear at this convention and fan fest and wrestling event. If you want to look it up on Facebook and all the interwebs, just search for World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling in Circleville, Ohio in March for Bobby Fulton. And newlawoffice.com is going to be helping bring that to the fans, helping the wrestling fans meet their heroes and idols in person, just as they help the average American person navigate his way through the treacherous legal waters of the American jurisprudence system. And boy, howdy, I'll tell you what, the pharmaceutical companies are going to be down on their knees begging Stephen P. New to leave them alone, because he has filed and is continuing to file the introductory lawsuits in what's going to be a big old wing-ding concerning the babies that were addicted to opioids because of the misrepresentation of these pharmaceutical companies to doctors and et cetera across the country. If you know anyone, if you know someone who's foster child or adopted child or grandchild, someone who's not in immediate care of their parents, had this syndrome and this issue when they were born, Stephen P. New wants to talk to you. Or if you have any issue, as we've mentioned, Stephen, he'll call you back. He's got a lot more energy and patience than I do. He calls everybody back and he never sleeps, and he will help you with your particular issue, or he will tell you where to go to find that help. He won't just tell you where to go. Everybody can do that. He'll tell you where to go to find help. Stephen P. New at newlawoffice.com, 888-692-8084. Don't even be shocked if he answers the phone when you call.
And don't be shocked if he doesn't answer the phone when you call, but
it just depends on when you call.